This video will show you how to ringbark a tree. If you look carefully, you can see that I tried ringbarking this particular tree a couple of years ago by cutting away about 100 millimeters of bark. Unfortunately, this area is not enough to kill these types of trees, as they are used to sustaining severe fire damage. The problem with gums is that they have evolved to survive fires and a lot of damage to their bark, which is why I'm removing such a large area of bark and putting slices into the sapwood to help dry it out more quickly. Now, before you greenies get upset, there are many reasons to ringbark a tree, and this is mine. This rainforest property of ours was once upon a time covered in giant trees. I learnt this from an old man who visited our property when we first moved here. He told me that this property was once owned by his grandfather and father, and who had once had the largest sawmill on the plateau. He can remember when he was young that his father said that this area was covered with giant trees like the Australian red cedar, rosewood, Arctic birch, to name some of the larger trees. As you can see by this photo of an old giant on a neighbouring reserve, even the vines are massive. Apparently the overhead canopy was so high and dense that there was no undergrowth, and it was easy to ride a horse to the top of our property. But sadly these giants have all gone due to the forestry and burning. This property was first harvested about 100 years ago, and again 50 years ago, as bulldozers allowed more difficult areas to be harvested. After that they tried to raise cattle in what was left, but to provide grass required regular burning to clear the regrowth and promote grass growth. Over time, fires and grazing wiped out the seeded regrowth of these old giants, till all that were left were gums that could survive the burn-offs. I'm not sure how long ago this property was last burnt off, but it must have been at least 20 years ago. In that time, the gums have grown large and undergrowth so thick that in places you can hardly walk through it. When we first bought this property, I started clearing the old forestry tracks to more easily walk around this property. It was in these areas that I started to notice the regrowth of tree ferns, bago palms and some red cedars. Apparently the seeds from these plants are spread by birds from the neighbouring reserve, and hopefully in time more of these old giants will reseed themselves. Wherever I recognise one of these young saplings, I clear around it, and when needed I ringbark one or more of the gums to give it more light. As time goes on, I will ringbark more and more of the gums as the old rainforest giants reseed themselves. The dead gums will let in more light, provide some wind protection and habitat for wildlife. Eventually these will rot and fall to the ground and will be replaced by the original giants. Sadly, I will not be around long enough to see this, but hopefully future generations will take this job on and see this property back to how it was originally. This tree took just over 15 minutes to ringbark with a brush destructor blade. I am very pleased to announce that I have just discovered what I am sure is the first rosewood sapling to reseed itself on our property. I discovered it on a track I first cleared about 4 years ago, and in a small pocket that was now getting plenty of sunlight. I have not walked this track for some time, and when I came back to re-clear it just the other day, there it was, glowing in the afternoon sun that was seeping through and opening in the canopy. What a joy.